a change in profit sharing ratio, we are talking about the reconstitution of partnership. Can you tell me what do you mean by reconstitution of partnership? When does
Ma'am, reconstitution.
reconstitution of partnership happen?
Ma'am, reconstitution of partnership.
Happens first thing when there is a change in the profit sharing ratio.
Okay, ma'am.
Reconstitution of partnership will happen when there is a change in profit sharing ratio, or where there is admission of partners,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
where there is retirement of partner, or you could say there is death of partner, or there is merger. At that places, the reconstitution of partnership will happen. And
Yes,
when
ma'am.
there is a reconstitution of partnership, these are the things that you definitely have to do. First thing, you will have to find out the gain and sacrificing ratio. What you have to do?
Gain and sacrificing ratio.
Then you have to do treatment of goodwill.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the treatment of goodwill that you do?
Treatment of goodwill.
Yeah, treatment of goodwill. In this, you basically have to raise the goodwill and
Okay, and write off the goodwill.
okay, this is the treatment of goodwill that you have to do. The third thing that you have to do, you have to revalue your assets and liabilities. Do you
Yes, ma'am.
remember this or you don't remember this also?
Ma'am, I remember revaluation. Yes.
So you have to revalue your assets and liabilities. In
Yes,
this,
ma'am.
if you decide to show your new balance sheet at new value, then what do you do?
Let me make a revaluation account.
You make a revaluation account. And if you decide to show your new balance sheet at old value,
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We make like a separate journal entry or like past adjustment.
we pass an adjustment entry. So to pass this adjustment entry, there are 5 steps, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What are those 5 steps?
Ma'am, first, ma'am, we get the what was it, ma'am?
You have your book, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Open.
So
First, you find the net effect of. First, you
valuation.
find your net effect of revaluation. Then,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to
Then
proceed ahead if you don't remember things.
okay.
Then, then what do you do?
Ma'am, capitalization. No, wait. We find the share.
Yeah, what do you do in the second step?
Ma'am, we find the share and sacrifice or gain of the
We
partner.
find the share sacrificing or gain ratio. Then,
Yes, ma'am. We then calculate the proportionate amount at effect of revaluation
we find the proportionate what?
amount.
Proportionate amount of what?
Net effect of revaluation.
We find the proportionate amount of net effect of revaluation of how much the partners have gained or sacrificed.
Yes, ma'am.
Then step number 4. If there's a profit on revaluation, what is the journal entry you pass?
If there's a profit on revaluation, it'll be revaluation account debtor.
Winning
To,
partner debit, sacrificing partner credit. This is the
okay.
adjustment entry.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, and if you have a loss on revaluation, then what do you do?
Ma'am, sacrificing partner debit, gaining partner credit.
Sacrificing partner debit, gaining partner credit. Okay, so the
Yes,
third
ma'am.
thing that you do is revaluation of your assets and liabilities. Fourth thing that you will do is Accounting treatment of reserves. Fourth thing that you would do is the accounting treatment of
Reserves.
reserves, accumulated profits and losses.
Yes, ma'am.
Of reserves, accumulated profits and losses. I want you to write this down.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about treatment of goodwill when there is a change in profit sharing ratio. So first you did revaluation of assets and liabilities, calculation of gain and sacrificing ratio. Now the third thing that we are doing is the treatment of goodwill when there is a profit sharing ratio. So there is two ways to treat goodwill. First way to treat goodwill is that you adjust it through partner's capital account. What do you do?
Adjust to partner's capital account.
So it will be again the gaining partner debit, and sacrificing partner credit. You find the net effect of goodwill valuation and you adjust it to partner's capital account where you do gaining partner debit, sacrificing partner credit. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
If you have a fluctuating capital method, how many accounts of partners do you make?
Ma'am, one.
One. So if you have a fluctuating capital method, you make one account of partners, so all the adjustment happens through capital account.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. If you are following the fixed capital method, how many accounts of partners do you make?
Two.
You make two account of partners. One is the capital account
Current
and
account.
one is the current account. So in this method, when you are doing the adjustment of goodwill, gaining partner debit, sacrificing partner credit will happen through the current account.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. This is when you pass the adjusting entry for goodwill. But suppose you don't want to find adjustment entries of goodwill, you don't want to do the adjusting entries of goodwill. In that case, what do? You will first raise the goodwill. What do you do?
Raise the goodwill.
First, you raise the goodwill and then you will write off the goodwill.
Yes,
First,
ma'am.
you raise the goodwill and then you
And then
will.
you write off the goodwill.
When I am raising the goodwill, that means goodwill is debited.
Yes, ma'am.
When I am raising the goodwill, that means goodwill is
Goodwill is
debited.
debited.
And goodwill is always raised in OPOR, old partners, old ratio. So goodwill
Yes,
will
ma'am.
be debited, partner's capital account will be credited.
Credited.
Capital account will be credited in case of which method? Fluctuating capital.
Fluctuating method.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And partner's current account will be credited in case of which method? Fixed.
Fixed.
Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you do not want to pass adjustment entries, what do you first do? First you raise the goodwill, then you write off the goodwill. Raise the goodwill will always happen amongst the old partners in old ratio. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you're writing off the goodwill, that means you are removing the goodwill from books. What does it mean?
Removing goodwill from books.
So if you're removing goodwill from books, so you will credit goodwill account. When you're raising, you debit goodwill.
Debit.
When you're writing off, you will
You
credit
credit.
goodwill account. So you will say goodwill account credit. And the partners, all partners, capital account will be debited. Are you with
Debited.
me?
Yes, ma'am.
But this will happen in the new ratio.
Yes, ma'am.
Raise in which ratio?
New ratio.
Raise in old ratio, write
Old
off
ratio.
new ratio.
Okay. Write off a new ratio.
You will raise in which ratio?
Old ratio.
Write off in which ratio?
New ratio.
Again, you will raise in which ratio?
Old ratio.
Write off in.
New ratio.
So you can do adjustment related to goodwill either to directly the partner's capital account, gaining partner debit, sacrificing partner credit, or alternatively, you can first raise the goodwill. When you raise the goodwill, you show it in the books. When you write
Yes,
off
ma'am.
the goodwill, you remove it from the books. So alternatively, you can first raise the goodwill and then write off the goodwill.
Write off the good one.
Let's take it with an example. There is an example of example number one. I want you to first read and try. This worksheet is also uploaded, so you can see from there also.
Deficit gaining ratio.
Come on, read this example, Bakir.
A, B, and C are partners sharing profit and losses in the ratio 5 is to 4 is to 1.
What is this
This
5
is
is to 4 is to 1?
old ratio.
This is old ratio. Fine. Go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am. And it was decided that 15th April 2019, the profit sharing ratio will be 9 is to 6 is to 5.
This is
The
with
new ratio.
effect from, okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
That WEF is with effect from.
Okay.
Is to 6 is
Perfect.
to 5. That means
New ratio.
ratio will be 9 is to 6 is to 5. Fine.
Goodwill is to be valued at 2 years of purchase. Average profit of last 3 years
Is
profits.
of average profit.
Yes, ma'am.
2 into average profit. An average profit of last 3 years.
Last 3 years.
Okay.
So 42,000, 48,000, 60,000 respectively.
16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. The profits are 42, 48, 60. So 3 years, so divide by 3. This is your average profit.
Yes, ma'am.
Goodwill is 2 into average profit. So the
Average profit.
so 100,000 is the firm's goodwill.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. After
Goodwill
finding
appears
the
in the
firm's
books.
goodwill,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will read the head part. Read this.
Goodwill will appear in the books at 10,000.
Okay. So listen to me very carefully. Whenever you have goodwill that is already appearing in the books, I'm repeating again. Whenever you have goodwill
Hold-
already appearing in the books, you first have to write it off.
Okay, ma'am.
And this goodwill that is already appearing has to be written off in the old ratio.
Okay, ma'am.
When I write off goodwill, it will be goodwill credit.
Mm.
When
Yes, ma'am.
I raise goodwill, it will be goodwill debit.
Debit.
When I write off goodwill, it will be goodwill credit.
Credit.
When I write off goodwill, it will be goodwill credit,
Credit.
and the partner's capital account will be debited in the
Debit.
operation. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So if there is goodwill that is already appearing in the books, it has to be compulsorily written off in the old ratio. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Now read what they're asking us to do.
Pass necessary journal entries for the treatment of goodwill and also give necessary journals if goodwill is written or raised or written off.
So this is necessary journal entry to treat goodwill. Means if they ask you to do what is necessary, that means you adjust it through capital account.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Capital account.
And raising and writing of goodwill is another part. So come on,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
ask necessary journal entries. First thing that you will do, you will write off the goodwill appearing in the books.
Yes, ma'am.
This is which goodwill? Existing goodwill.
Existing goodwill, right?
Okay. And then you have to pass the necessary journal entry. So you would say you found out the gaining and sacrificing ratio, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Old minus new.
Always.
The
Yes, ma'am.
answer is negative, then it is
Negative,
a
so is
gain.
gain.
If the answer is positive, then it is a sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
So
Yes,
gaining
ma'am.
partner will be debited,
Debited and sacrificing will credited.
will be credited. So what is the value of the firm's goodwill?
10,000. No, 100,000. Okay.
Firm's goodwill into 3 by 20.
Existing.
So this is the gaining partner debited.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is the sacrificing partner credited.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is goodwill adjusted due to change in profit sharing ratio.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you
Okay.
with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Now your case 2. What is your case 2?
We have to pass necessary journal entries when goodwill is raised or written off.
Okay, so goodwill raised, that means goodwill will be debited
Debited, right?
and partner's capital account will be
Credited.
which ratio?
Ma'am, what do we say? Old ratio?
Old ratio. So goodwill debit, partner's capital account credit, old ratio.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and goodwill written off, that means goodwill will be credited
Credited.
and partner's capital account will be
Debited.
okay. In which ratio?
Oh, new ratio.
In new ratio. Okay, understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
So goodwill raised and goodwill written off. Now go to the next sum. Can you
Yes,
read the
ma'am.
next sum, please?
A, B, and C share profits and losses in the ratio 3 is to 2 is to 1. So this is old ratio.
Ratio, old ratio.
Respectively, with effect from 1st April 2018, they agreed to share profits equally. That is new ratio.
So
1
first
is
thing
to 1
what
is to
we
1.
will have to find out,
Ma'am, sacrificing and gaining ratio, right?
sacrificing and gain ratio. How do you get the sacrifice and gain ratio?
Ma'am, old ratio minus new ratio.
Have you found out?
No, ma'am. Oh, wait, yeah, for this one, yeah, yeah.
So 3 by 6,
Yeah, 3 by 6 minus 1 by 2, which will
1
be
by
1 by 6
3,
for A. Yeah, 1 by 3, sorry. That's the sacrificing.
2 by 6 minus 1 by 3,
Yes, ma'am.
and 1 by 6 minus 1 by 3.
1 by 3.
So I will multiply everything by 2. So it becomes 6, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So A will be
A will be 1 by 6.
gain or sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
B will be
B will be 0, so no sacrifice, not any gain.
D will be 0. Okay, and C will be
Minus 1 by 6 sacrifice gain.
minus 1 by 6 gain. Firm's goodwill is given
Yes, ma'am. 18,000.
to pass necessary journal entry when goodwill account is not open. When
Yes,
goodwill
ma'am.
account is not open means what?
Goodwill account is
If goodwill account is not open means we pass adjusting journal entry.
okay.
If you're passing adjusting journal entry means what?
Ma'am, what is adjusting journal entries?
You pass it through the partner's capital account.
Okay, okay.
So what will be the journal entry?
Gaining
Gain,
partners. Yes, ma'am.
gaining partner debit,
Sacrificing partner credit.
sacrificing partner credit. That means the C is the capital account will be debited
Yes, ma'am. And
and
A's capital account will be credited.
okay, how much?
So, let me check.
18,000 into 1 by 6,
Yes, ma'am. It is 3,000
3,000. So
for
gaining
each.
partner debit, sacrificing partner credit, 3,000, 3,000. I would say being adjusting journal entry for treatment of goodwill.
Yes, ma'am.
Adjusting journal entry for treatment of goodwill for change
Goodwill.
in profit sharing ratio.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is when the goodwill account is
Account is not opened.
opened. What
Yes,
happens
ma'am.
when the goodwill account is opened?
Yes, ma'am. For that, ma'am, it will be goodwill raised and goodwill written off.
So goodwill raise, that means goodwill debit.
Debit.
Goodwill written off, that means
Goodwill
goodwill.
credit.
Okay. Goodwill raise, that means goodwill debit.
Debit.
Written
Yes.
off means goodwill credit.
Credit.
So this will be given to all partners in which ratio?
In the raised, it will be old ratio and written off will be new ratio.
Okay. And this will be new ratio. That means it will be raised in the ratio of 3:2:1 and
And one
written
is to one is to one is to one.
off 1:1:1. Please do it.